Okay. Hello, hello, hello. We are live today. I'm going to wait for a few people to join in before we can get started. We are live at this time. Let me see. Waiting for people to join in. Okay, I have one person joined in at this time. Thank you for joining in. Thank you, thank you. Let's keep waiting. Let's give it a few minutes for a few more people to join in. Two people have joined in. Thank you all for joining in. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for joining in. Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year. I have two people on. Okay. Let me give it a few more minutes. Few more minutes and we start. Thank you for joining in on today's episode of the Inspired Women Show. Thank you all for joining in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for joining. Okay. Gonna be starting. Okay. It's 12:02. We're gonna go ahead and get started. People can join in as we go, and the recording is gonna be available live on Facebook, and also will be posted on the YouTube channel. So anyone that couldn't join in will be catching it up on the recording. So I want to welcome everyone today thank you all for joining in from all over. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us from. I thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Inspired Woman Show, your path to life purpose discovery. This show is always about inspiring people to become the best that God has called them to be, and also how to be able to turn the life experiences we've been through into discovering the purpose behind it and being able to use it to serve for a greater cause. So this is actually the second episode of the year. I have the first episode that was released last week is on YouTube, and that was on 7 steps to help you to fulfill your New Year's resolution. Because each year, as the year starts, we all always have resolutions, but most times it's kind of hard by the time we hit February to be able to keep up with the plans that we have for the year, and we see ourselves slipping by. So that episode is actually to help us to be able to follow through with our New Year resolution. So if you haven't seen that, is on YouTube, and I'll put the link on this recording so you can be able to view that. On today's episode, the topic is actually empower your mindset, and is about how to get rid of your pain without medications, drugs, or surgery. Like we know, to serve your purpose in life, you have to be healthy. And to be healthy, you have to have no pain. Most times when you want to live a healthy life or you want to get into exercising, one of the most things that prevent people from exercising is the pain, either from injury or from whatever situation that might have resulted in that pain. That kind of affects our physical activities. as a mental health provider and also a family nurse practitioner that run a practice here in Baltimore, Maryland, I encounter a lot of my clients that deal with pain, and pain can lead to depression, it can lead to anxiety, it can lead to drug abuse. I also do addiction management, so I know that this is something that is very, very serious. Over 50 million people in the United States alone deal with chronic pain each day, and most of the time that's what leads to drug abuse because you're trying to relieve that pain. Then you try one medicine, you switch to this next one. The next thing you know, it leads to drug abuse and or depression or anxiety. I have a lot of people. I saw one of my clients yesterday and she was crying in tears. I invited her to join in today. I'm hoping that she would join in. She was crying and in so much pain and depressed and anxious because she doesn't know how to deal with her pain. She's on all these pain medicines and medication for depression and anxiety and still can't get rid of that pain. And my guest today is also someone that knows what pain is all about, has dealt with pain, has himself, has dealt with it over years and knows what it feels like to be in pain and has been able to overcome that pain and today is living a pain-free life, and he's going to be sharing with us today how he was able to overcome that pain and living the great life that he's living today and going around impacting lives all over the world. He's been on several TV shows, he's been on different platforms talking about how he's been able to overcome his pain, and today he's here to share with us today. So before I bring him on, I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about our guest today. So our guest today is all the way in Santa Cruz, California, and he's Kevin Yates. And Kevin is a former athlete who enjoyed lifting weights, working out, and playing sports until he had a serious shoulder injury, low back pain that crippled him at times, chronic knee pain, and a list of injuries had taken over his life. And as a result of this, he gained 36 pounds. His blood pressure was out of control. He suffered from depression. He was also diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. That sounds like what I deal with on a daily basis in my practice. And his health was deteriorating. And after doctors and physical therapists, chiropractic adjustments and medications had failed him, he was able, he was determined to find the solution to his problem. He realized that the reason these methods failed was because they only managed the symptoms of his pain, which failed to eliminate the cause of the pain. Kevin dedicated himself to finding the root cause of his pain and injuries. And once he did that, his pain and injuries were healed, and the depression and the anxiety also disappeared. He lost the weight that he had gained. He regained his health back and took control of his life. This experience became a driving force in his life to help others resolve chronic pain and injuries without drugs, medications, or surgery by addressing the physical, mental, and emotional causes behind their pain. Without further ado, I present to you our guest for today, Kevin Yates. Kevin, you are welcome to the show. Thank
Thank
you for joining us today, all the way from Santa Cruz, California. We are so pleased to have you in our midst today. Thank you for making time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. It's an honor to have you.
yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So, Kevin, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself. I've introduced you, but kind of tell us about yourself and the driving force. I know I shared a little bit of that on your bio. Tell us the journey that you've been through and how you stepped into this purpose that you're serving today.
Yeah, I mean that was like the whole kind of story of it. But for me, it started in like around 2000, and I had actually gotten into the fitness industry. I was like working as a personal trainer. I was just starting out, and I worked at, it was like a health club, right? Like this place where there was a lot of people who were marathon runners. They were competitive tennis players. And these were all like people who were like in their 30s, 40s, 50s and beyond, cyclists. So they were really physically active. And my journey kind of started with my own pain, like you were talking about. I had all those issues going on, and then over time, people were starting to come in from the club who were dealing with the same type of things. They were getting shoulder problems, back problems, knees, hips, and going to see doctors, getting massage, chiropractic treatments, cortisone shots, you name it, and not having any success with it. And so, at that time, there wasn't a lot of information with, like the physical therapy side of things or rehabilitation for injuries, and then fitness and how to merge those. So it was through my own experience that kind of got me going, in that area. For me, like the final kind of straw was the shoulder injury. And I think it was 2002, 2003. And, when I couldn't lift my arm over my head, and there was more things I couldn't do than I could. And I went into, after it was about 3 months. So I had tried to just push through it. That didn't work because it got worse. I tried to rest it, ice it, take medications, do all this stuff, and nothing got better. So it was about 3 months. And I finally go, okay, I'm going to go to a physical therapy clinic and see if they could fix it. And I'm not kidding when I say I spent about 3 hours there with the top two therapists, because the one couldn't solve it and figure it out. So he brought in the other, and they were looking at themselves, literally scratching their heads, not knowing what to do about it. And the advice that I got, that was the real thing that hit hard, because I just was told my posture sucked. Don't lift weights. Don't do anything that hurts. Don't do this, don't do that. And to me, I just thought, man, that's not really much of a solution, and if the pain got worse, I was told maybe somewhere down the road, if nothing else works, you might have to go through surgery, and the surgery freaks me out. Just the thought of that. I didn't see medications as being a solution long-term, because I know there's a lot of health consequences that go on. Every year there's an estimated 106,000 deaths that happen from adverse drug reactions. And that's the fourth leading cause of death anyways. So that's a pretty scary statistic. So for me, I remember thinking that if they can't give me the answers and figure it out, then I'll do it on my own. So that was what sparked the whole journey of me just doing everything I can. I was reading books, I was taking courses, I was getting certifications. I found a mentor who was actually working with people who were injured, and he kind of understood it. So it was just a whole process of, and it became like years of learning this stuff, and then finally figuring out what the missing link was, what wasn't resolving my pain. And then when I started to resolve my pain, then I started to share that with the other people who were coming in and not finding answers as well with conventional methods.
Okay, that is so awesome. This is talking about, sometimes I always share that the things we go through in life, we all have giftings. Then we have life experiences that we're given, which through those life experiences, we discover our purpose. So had it been that you did not go through this pain, you did not get to that point whereby you started gaining all this weight, it was debilitating, you wouldn't have been able to come up to that purpose of discovering, okay, this is not right. How can I make it better? But because you went through it, now you stand a better chance of understanding what other people are going through. Then you now stand as an authority to be able to help them to deal with that pain because you've been through it. So that's about discovering that purpose in our lives through the things that we've been through. So you went through your own share of pain, gained the weight involved, and got to that point of no return and said, okay, enough is enough. I got to figure out a way to end this cycle in my life. So kind of share with us, how were you able, since our topic is about empowering your mindset, how were you able to empower your mindset to be able to address this pain that's crippled you for so many years?
Yeah, it was, and that's the big thing. Like when you say that about empowering your mindset, like that's one of the big reasons I wanted to be on here, because it's something that it's an important part if we're dealing with pain. Especially, it's important with everything in life, but especially with dealing with pain, and it's something that is not being addressed, at least not enough. I don't hear it being talked about. Everything is about the physical stuff. What exercises do I do? What stretches do I do? What medications do I take? And there's not enough being talked about in terms of mindset. So, for me, like, there was a lot that went in with this too. It wasn't just being in pain, but it was all of the other things that start to happen. So yeah, I gained a lot of weight. I just started to lose my motivation for doing anything in life because it felt like little by little, my life was being taken away. Suddenly now the things that I used to do all the time that were like play to me became very difficult to do, or I couldn't do them. I couldn't run anymore. I couldn't do certain things. And then there was the depression that I was dealing with. There was, I got diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, and, I was just watching everything kind of fall apart. It was affecting, at the time I was married, it was affecting my relationship with my wife. And so all of these things happen. And I think sometimes they don't seem like they're connected, but they are. So, one of the things for me was, and it took me a long time to learn that it's more than just a physical thing. I had to start to understand what was going on, in especially because the mindset's where that drives all the actions. About 98% of our actions and behaviors are driven from the subconscious mind. So, I tried to think positive and repeat affirmations and, do all this stuff, but none of it was really working, or it didn't keep me motivated very long. I would end up like making a little bit of progress, and then boom, I end up right back in my old habits, and I didn't know why. And it wasn't until I started to understand, it's kind of like the story that I was telling myself. And my story was that, well, pain is just a part of getting older. This is how it is. The doctors and therapists, nobody was able to fix it. So I'm going to have to learn to live with this for the rest of my life. I have a bad back. I have bad knees. I have arthritis. I have bursitis. I can't run anymore. I can't, this was all of the thoughts and feelings and beliefs that I had that became this story of mine. And the problem is that through repetition, we constantly think that, and it's over and over. And that's how the brain develops basically like the habit or the pattern, right? It wires in the story, and that becomes our reality. So the things that I'm starting to do now are things that are aligned with this story. I shouldn't do this. I can't do that. I'm always going to be in pain. So I had to really start to understand how to kind of unwind that, and it's almost like training the body, right? Training the muscles of the body to get stronger, to become pain-free, to get healthy. We have to retrain the mind as well, especially the subconscious mind. It takes a while and to undo all of that programming that's in there. So that's where a lot of like the most important work I did started there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing on that. Like you said, mindset is everything. If we can, because what we believe becomes our reality. So if we can be able to change our thought process, just like I was sharing with one of my clients yesterday. I mean, when she was crying and I can't get rid of this pain, I'm so anxious, she's just shaking and all that. I kept like, this is about your mindset. It's about the thought process. It's about you believing that you cannot move. You cannot do this. You cannot do that. And what you believe becomes your reality. You got to change the thought process going on in your head. You got to understand that even though it may hurt, but if you push a little further than you're trying to push, then it makes it a little easier to deal with that situation and make the pain go away. So it's all about mindset, because it's about it also has to do with like what you believe. Like, it's about giving somebody medication. If you believe that this medication is gonna work for you, then it's gonna work. But if you believe right from even before you take that medication, it's not gonna work, so it's about reframing and changing the thought process that go on in our head. That's where the healing process begins, with the pain. That's great. So the next thing I have here is about food, because food is a very important aspect of what goes on in our body, the type of food that we eat. can determine what kind of damages that we go. There are food that are actually inflammatory that can cause more pain for us, or even certain forms of cancer. So in terms of diet, I know there are a lot of things you change to be able to get rid of the pain. Apart from changing your mindset, I know there are some food changes that you actually made. Can you please share with us what kind of food do you recommend that are less inflammatory, that are better for our health to help deal with the pain?
Yeah, and that's kind of where it leads to. So it's interesting because now once we kind of get the mindset right, we start to align the mindset with the outcome we want, right? I don't want to live in pain anymore. So now we can start to take the actions, and that's where like nutrition will come in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because we all know, right? There, healthy foods, unhealthy foods that are highly inflammatory could cause digestive, disorders and all kinds of problems. The thing that I started to learn was that it wasn't so much like a one size fits all. And I think there's a lot being talked about. Certain foods are healthy and unhealthy. And I started to see it like not only in myself, like with clients I was working with, that some people responded to certain foods, in a way where those foods could work wonders for them. And other people, it'll make them feel bloated or tired or irritable. And I started to see that this was happening with a lot of healthy foods as well. Like for me, I became so sensitive to a lot of healthy foods that, still I can't really eat a lot of them because they'll trigger pain. So what I learned to do is just really assess, and it's such an individual thing. We all need the same type of nutrients: carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, water. We all need them, but we don't all need the same amounts. And the foods that we get them from, our bodies don't process all foods the same way. And some of this is just kind of our genetic makeup. And a lot of it too is though driven from, like we talked about, the mindset drives the nervous system, and that affects the digestive system. So even, for example, I worked with a lot of corporate executives, and I wasn't a corporate executive, but I related so well to that lifestyle of, working 40, 50. I had a guy who worked 80 hours a week, no joke. And the more stress that we're under, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, emotional, then the more it starts to affect the digestive system. It will start to disrupt it. So we don't digest foods as well as we used to. We don't absorb nutrition from the foods that we eat. And it could cause a lot of pain and everything, even if we're eating quote unquote healthy. So I always found that it's not a one size fits all, but really to kind of assess it for ourselves. What works and what doesn't work. I can share the simple way to do that later if you want to go into that. But that was kind of the main thing with that, is really learning to assess, what works for you. And then second with it is, I had a lot of times with clients, I could put together the perfect nutrition program for them. I knew it would work really well for their bodies, but it didn't matter if they weren't able to do it. So a lot of times they were being put off because it was a lot of, you need to eat the things that they didn't really enjoy eating. Would it get them healthy and maybe help their pain? Yeah, but they didn't enjoy it. So I find that, if we don't enjoy what we're doing, we're not going to do it very long. So that kind of, there's like a middle ground that has to be in there too. I think we might not have the perfect foods, the most healthy stuff all the time, but if we're over here and we want to get over here, if we can just bridge that gap and start to move maybe right here for now, let's just get right here, get some improvements in there. And then a lot of times that will even spur on the motivation to try and improve, little by little. There's got to be some enjoyment in there, because we got to be able to do this for the rest of our lives. Doesn't make sense to do something for a couple days, couple weeks, a couple months, and then go, you know what? I really don't like this. I can't wait to stop. We give up, and then we go right back where we started.
Absolutely. Thank you for shedding light on that. I know some of our viewers, they are people that kind of are specific. They like to know. I know in general, like you said, it's not a one size fit all approach. What works for this person might not work for the next person, but in general, there are food that are kind of known to not be good for the body, that can cause pain or inflammation, which results in pain. I know, like sugar, burger, artificial and trans fat, refined carbohydrates, excessive alcohol, processed food, they're known to be an inflammatory type of food that can lead to pain. And I also know that certain food like berries, leafy green vegetables, food that are rich in omega-3 fatty acids are also good for our body. So is there kind of food that you want to kind of put out there that you would say that are better for our health, that can help people deal more better with their pain? Are there food that you recommend?
Yeah, and I would say, even kind of on that, the things to watch out for, right? Again, assess it for yourself, but you were talking about sugar and processed foods right up there at the top of the list. We've got to look at grains, gluten, wheat, multigrain. A lot of times, people think that because it says that grain, multigrain, whole wheat, that it's good for us. And that's one of the things that I find like a lot of people have reactions to. And not good. So gluten, grains, those are conventional. Dairy tends to be another one because, they just blast that stuff with heat and it just basically destroys a lot of the nutrition in it. And if they homogenize it, then it just kind of pulverizes the molecules in there to the point where the body doesn't really recognize it anymore. And a lot of it becomes unusable by the body. So the body doesn't have really a way to digest it well. And yeah, that can trigger pain. Those are a couple things. Caffeine, alcohol, those are things to kind of watch. I find like not everybody reacts though the same way with those. So again, just kind of keep it in mind. And then, if you have any of those things, I like to more test them out. So, but it's hard to do if we have them all at once. If you had something that had whole grain and sugar and was processed and your body doesn't react well to it. Well, let's see, was it the grain? Was it the sugar? Is it because it's processed? It's hard to differentiate what's what. So it's important to try to test those out and isolate those as we can. Those are kind of the big things with that though. And I think you hit on that. The first thing I do with people really is get their water intake up, and we talk about foods a lot, which is really important, but the water, because, we get dehydrated, and most people are. And as little as 2% dehydration, which is not a lot, can severely affect, like in athletes, it negatively affects performance. So if it's doing that, it's affecting how we move. And the more dehydrated we get, and think of like the discs in the spine, things like that need water to absorb water, and we don't hold water, the bones get closer together, so we can start to trigger pain that way. So really, like the first thing is like getting water
intake up high.
And when water intake's up, it starts to regulate appetite. So, when like I used to just chronically overeat all the time and I couldn't stop, I always felt hungry. And it wasn't until I started to really like get my water intake up and I started to realize, because the brain's sending the same signal to eat that it does when it needs water. And my body was crying for water, not for food. And a lot of times we're mistakenly eating when we need to drink.
Yeah, drink water, yeah. So your body is saying, I need some water, then you're giving it some food. Or I need some water and you're giving it some soda. Then the soda causes you to gain the weight. And then from the weight comes the pain. Because when you gain a lot of weight, then you're in pain. I was one of my clients, she just had a knee surgery. Then before you know it, she started gaining weight again. And I kept warning her each time she comes in and we weigh her. I'm like, your weights are beginning to trend up. Remember, when you gain certain amount of weight, it's going to start pushing down on your knees. And the knee that you had just spent a whole lot of money to have the surgery, you're going to end up losing the knee function again, because you're gaining so much weight, and all that weight is going to weigh down on your knee, which is going to result back to pain where you're coming from. So you got to watch it. You got to know the signal that your body is sending you. When you feel that urge to put something in your mouth, instead of eating, drink water. Suppress it with water. Drink a lot of water. Water is life, and it helps with weight loss. It helps to deal with the pain, because our body needs fluid in certain regions of it to be able to be more mobile. So water can never be overemphasized. So thank you for sharing on that aspect. Another question that I would like you to address for us is about physical changes. We know that for us to be able to live pain-free, there are certain mechanics that we need to know how to apply. Like somebody that is having waist pain, knee pain, there are certain ways that we move that can result in pain. So what are your recommendations on that? How in terms of body mechanics and how we move and all that, what do you suggest and what kind of recommendations you have for at home or like exercises that people can do at home to help alleviate pain? What do you have to say on that?
Yeah, this is big. And it's always, you know, and I hate to say when I say it's not a one size fits all, because it sounds like I'm dodging the whole thing, but it really is true. You know, I hear it all the time, like, you know, people being advised, just, you need to exercise, you need to move. It's true. Like, especially with chronic pain, exercise, movement, it's like the best thing we can do, right? But the most important thing that I found was that it's not just exercise, because look, you know, people all over like have gym memberships. There's like 50, 60,000 people across, you know, the US alone with gym memberships. Yet we have the best equipment there. We have the latest technology. And when people are exercising, they're also, injuries are on the rise. You know, we've got 1.5 million surgeries every year being performed for chronic pain. Most of those, I think, could be avoided. And it's not because people just aren't exercising. The problem is it's the way that they're exercising. How we do exercise is more important than just the exercises that we do. I find that the most basic stuff like works the best. The basics work the best. There's no magical secret exercise for this or a super stretch for that. It is basic stuff. So if we think about the movements that we do every single day, like outside of the gym, what are the movements that we do? We squat, we push, we pull, we do single leg type movements, we kneel down, right? We bend and we rotate. So anything that we do in the gym needs to be a variation, either one of those movements or variations of those movements, because the more closely that we can mimic the movements we do in real life in the gym setting, that's how we prepare the bodies to be able to move pain-free, you know, in our everyday lives. When we're being told, you know, don't squat down, don't bend, don't turn because you're going to hurt yourself, all that does is like we can't live in a bubble. We can't just guard against every movement, because look, we got to sit down in a chair and stand up. You've got to get in and out of a car. You might have to go up and down stairs. You know, we reach in cupboards. We're moving all the time. When we walk, our body is rotating. So if we're trying to avoid everything, it doesn't fix the problem. We're always going to be having the weak links in the body that leave us susceptible to pain and injuries. So I take it the other way around. I will never push somebody or advise somebody to do something that hurts. But the important thing is to understand, how do we do these movements safely and effectively? And it's just correcting weak links in the body. Weak links tend to be like what I call the big three. There's areas in the upper mid back. There's areas in the abdominal complex, what we call the AKA the core, and there's weak links in the hips. And we've got to not just do those individually, but tie them all in, because the body doesn't work in individual parts like exercise machines do, which is why exercise machines are something I strongly suggest just stay away from. But the body has to work together, right? It's integrating all of these kind of areas of the body and getting them to work as one unit. When we start doing that, we'll find that the body has this amazing ability to protect itself. The body has an amazing capacity to heal itself naturally if we give it the right environment. So this is kind of one of the ways that we give it the right environment.
Awesome. Okay, so you've shared on some three important aspects. You talked about the mindset, how we need to empower our mindset, because it all starts from up there to go down to the food, because if you don't have the right mindset to even begin to make the right changes that will lead to getting rid of the pain, there's no way to start. So first of all, we need to know that we cannot tell ourselves that I have to live with this pain. This pain is never going to go away. I'm meant to be in pain forever. No, I mean, there are ways that we can get away from that pain by, first of all, believing that this pain can be taken care of other ways if I do the right things that will help the pain to go away. We go to the food, making sure that we eat the right kind of food, and then the physical changes, making sure that we are moving in a certain way to avoid inflicting pain in our body. Another thing that I would want to ask is this: are there a particular age group that this changes applies to, or is it something that it's a general thing that anybody can apply to be able to help them deal with the pain?
Yeah, anybody can. I mean, it's the thing with age, you know, and it's just what I found, that, you know, most of the time that we're dealing with pain, most of them, you know, as we get like in our 30s or 40s. So I think it's, you know, more common, specifically like the over 40 type population, but it could be anybody. And I, you know, the way it's going, because technology is advancing so fast, you know, and as great as it could be to help us make life easier and certain things easier, it's kind of taking away from us in terms of our ability to move well, you know, and our eating habits. You know, the quality of food nowadays is just getting worse and worse. So I think we're going to start to see this trend probably hit younger, you know, younger populations as it goes. So I don't think it's just specific to one age group, although I tend to see that the most common are kind of like the 30 or 40 plus populations.
Okay. All right. So I know you have a program that you run. Can you tell us a little bit about that program and if there's a way that people can connect with you and how they can do that?
Yeah, I coach people. You know, I coach them both in person and online. So, and it just basically what I'm dealing with. You know, when somebody comes to me and says I have pain and I've tried everything and nothing's working, they've been through the whole gambit: doctors, chiropractors, medications, exercise, whatever, therapy. Some went through surgery and nothing's really working. You know, the reason why I look at it is because most of the things that they've tried have only been focused on managing the symptoms, and nothing has identified and eliminated the cause. If we get to the root cause and we eliminate that, then the symptoms have no choice but to disappear. They're only there because there's a cause. So what I do is I look at what is the cause. I don't need to give you a million exercises or nutrition tips if I don't identify what's causing the pain in the first place. Exercise isn't going to help if the cause isn't addressed. Nutrition isn't going to help if the cause isn't addressed. So that's the thing that I'm doing with people is let's identify what the root cause is. The areas that I look at are, physical. I want to see what's happening when you move. I want to see, nutritionally what's going on, but I also want to understand mental and emotional what's going on. The things that, affect the mind, affect the nervous system, affect the digestive, the hormonal, the whole body system, and they affect movement. So if we can kind of go upstream there and start to understand what the root cause is, then the symptoms tend to go right away. Okay. So that's what I focus on.
Okay, that's awesome. So how can people find you?
Right here, Facebook. Look me up. It's Kevin Yates, KevinYates. That's the easiest way. You can find me on there. Send me a message. That's fine. I'm more than happy to, help somebody. Even if I can't help them personally, I'm more than happy to try and direct them, get them in a direction that can help them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin, for joining us this afternoon. I know you're a very busy man. Thank you for making our time to be with us. And I'm sharing some little tips that could help people to live a pain-free life. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you, our viewers, for joining. It's a pleasure to have you all. We're going to make this video available on Facebook and also on YouTube. And hopefully maybe by next week, I might follow it up with a little bit more tips on nutrition that we can help us as well. So it's a pleasure to have you all here. Like Kevin said, if you want to learn more from him, you can look him up on Facebook and he'll be able to direct you better on how and which way to go. I thank you for joining, and in the next coming episodes, I plan to bring more people to talk about health, because for us to live a healthy, purposeful life in year 2021, we first of all need to address our health issues, and we cannot be setting goals if our health is not what it needs to be. So my goal for this next few weeks or few months is to first of all get our health where it needs to be so that we can be able to focus on our goals and aspirations for the year 2021. I thank you all for joining. It's been a pleasure, and we're going to go ahead and end this broadcast. Thank you all, and God bless.